welcome everybody at this 16th BMI Inspires. And this is actually a special edition because normally we take a content subject like one of the business model shifts and we talk you through it. But today we're actually talking about a concrete tool we're using a lot as Business Models Inc. to get our inspiration and actually also the inspiration for the business model shifts. And of course, we'll share some content and value stories with you to get your inspiration as well. So I hope you're ready for this BMI Inspires. Why do we take this subject? Actually, because after our Inspires and also after and during our strategy work, we get a lot of questions. People ask us, where do you get your inspiration from? Why do you know this? Can we have your decks? And where do you find this information? And actually, it is very simple. We help companies with their strategy and we want to give them perspective and we want to challenge them to play a certain role and to make a shift towards a new way of creating value. And there's one very strong element in there, and that's actually around inspiration. We want to inspire companies and we do a lot to get that inspiration. So we do trend watching. We use business model patterns to challenge companies and people. We do context analysis, we do competitor analysis. And one of the most powerful tools we use to do this work is actually fresh watching. So that's the topic of today's BMI Inspires. And we want to give you a sneak peek of how we do this stuff, how it works and what the benefit is and where you can get your inspiration from. So we will also do that. Besides, we will explain how fresh watching works. We will also give two value creation stories. So actually two stories in which we done fresh watching, in this case for our book. And we will dive into those case stories to inspire you with the lessons we learned from those two cases. And I'm not doing that alone. So my name is Gijs Mensing and I'm a strategy designer at Business Models Inc. And I've been applying fresh watching for the past years to get this inspiration. And together with me is Scott van den Berg. And Scott is actually our research specialist. So he's done a lot of this research for our book, but also for our strategy work. And Scott, you will be talking about those two cases. And actually what's also funny to know or interesting to know is that Scott is a startup consultant and he's actually the owner of the podcast Investeer een keer. Dus Scott, you will be talking later. Let's start. So the question is, what is fresh watching and how does it work? I first have a question for you and for those who joined early in this in BMI Inspires already posted some answers in the chat, but I first want to ask you what companies inspire you, and I'm also looking for unusual companies. So usual or unusual companies. What companies inspire you and why do they inspire you? So please put that your answer in the chat and we'll take a look at that later on. So why do we do this? Why do we do fresh watching? Well, if you're actually a person or an individual and take a CEO, you're a CEO of a company. And as a CEO, you have a question. Why? Because there are a lot of external factors happening around the world. And as a company, you have a business model with which you make money. And because the world is changing around you, that business model is attacked. It's decreasing in relevancy. So you have a question. And so you need to look around, okay, how do I continue to create value? How do I adjust as a company? And of course, there's value in looking at those external factors. How can I tap into those context factors? There's also a very important driver is your vision. You have as a person or as a company, because there's a lot of information there in the answer, okay, how can we create value? Of course, another very important source of information and truth is the customer. Why? Because the customer has a lot of answers for you as well. So as a company, in this case the CEO, you need to be able to ask the right questions in order to get the right answers, and get information from your customer. So these are all important elements in getting information in order to make decision, okay, how do I need to adjust? How can I create more value and how to stay relevant? And another aspect is, and that's what we're going to address today, is fresh watching. Looking at companies other than yours, and specifically other than yours, how do they create value? What's their distinguishing factor? And actually, if you combine these elements as CEO, you can get the answer for yourself, okay, how do we evolve as a company? And that's why you need to do fresh watching. So actually, as a company, you should always rethink what you're doing. I'm creating value today, and is that value still relevant, or is it decreasing in relevancy? So you need to rethink, you need to re-look around you, gather information, and redesign your business and your value propositions and your experiences and your services. And you need to restart, because only redesigning doesn't do the trick. You need to restart, do things differently, deliver a different value. So that's why you also need to do fresh watching. And fresh watching is actually the mindset and the approach to analyze unusual business models for inspiration. And we'll tell you how, and we'll give you a sneak peek into 2 of those companies. We've done this a lot. We are quite experienced as Business Models Inc. So we would like to shine a light on the whole notion of fresh watching for you. So let's go back to the question and let's see what answers we have in the chat. So I saw Zoku, someone's inspired by Zoku, and the fun fact and how they communicate. Lemonade, I heard Lemonade, I think, which is also a very inspiring company. And Scott, you had some news about Lemonade?
Yeah, so we also wrote a blog about it. It's also on our website. But what's a very cool story to tell is that they last week, I think they did their IPO, and the price of their stock rose with like 5x.
Yeah.
And it's a company that's still making a loss. So last year their loss was 100 million.
Yeah. So, you know, the company itself doesn't always need to make big money to be inspiring. So that's Lemonade. I like the SM. Nike, I saw in the fashion and footwear. Did you see other examples? I forgot, Scott? No? Okay. Let's continue, because inspiration is everywhere, actually. And how do you get that inspiration? Actually, it's very simple. It's by answering and asking yourself 3 strategic questions about that specific company or inspiration source. So the first question is around, how does this company create, deliver, and capture value today? How do they deliver value? What kind of value? And what type of model is it? Is it the circular model? Is it the services model? Is it the platform model? So analyze the business model and see how they deliver value today. Also, what's happening in their context, in the company's context. And very interesting, and we'll get back to that in our examples as well, how do they tap into that context? So how is it changing, and what changes do they tap into? And then the third one is what is distinguishing about the role of this company. And what role do they own to make an impact to their customers and stakeholders? So what's their vision and what's distinguishing about it? And so how do you do it? Now, actually, you select and research. So you select the companies you would like to research and you research them on those 3 aspects. When you research it, you don't have the insights yet. So you need to discuss amongst yourself, maybe with some experts, discuss what do we see as value, what do we see as vision, what's distinguishing actually. So conclude what's, for example, distinguishing, what's an X factor. And then if possible, validate. Why? Because you don't have the truth. So if there's someone with a link to that company or someone with explicit knowledge about that company, please go to that person and validate. And then you use that information to design and apply it to your own business. So where do you get this knowledge from? It's not in books, it's not in the library. It's actually quite simple because, as you know, knowledge is everywhere nowadays. And we use this as well. So we go to websites, we go to the homepage, about the About Us page. There's a lot of useful information there, especially how companies want to present themselves. And also use search engines like Google, and just search for the company or elements of the company and see what pops up. What's pending online? What are people talking about and dive into that. Because yes, the corporate page, homepage is one thing, but that's their idea of how they want to come across. But also look at what people are telling about this company, and also watch videos from founders, from events. And actually, if you combine that, you have enough information. Yes, you can go through the annual reports, but I guarantee you, you won't find a lot of added value in that. Yeah, if you're looking for specific details, maybe yes. But if you're analyzing a business model, you have enough information tapping in these sources. So, and then you should discuss and conclude. And actually, you want to have the X factor out of that business model. What's so special in the value they create? Maybe in the value itself, maybe how they create it, how they earn money with it. What's the X factor? And there might be multiple X factors in the business model. Then also the context. Of course, you look at different things happening in the context, but what are the key drivers? What are distinguishing things happening in the context which this business taps into? How do they make use of the changes in the context? And then the last one, as I said, what's distinguishing in their role, in their vision? Because you see successful companies really have a distinguishing role in society they play. They really tap into a specific issue or solve a specific problem. So this is how you need to conclude. And then, as said, please validate. If you know anybody, you can use LinkedIn to get in contact, maybe via, but please validate, because you will get new and interesting insights from those conversations. And then, as said, use this information to actually look at your own vision and your own business model and see, okay, how can I be more distinguishing? How can I really create and make a difference in this world as a role, but also with concrete business models? So that actually, in essence, is what fresh watching is. It's selecting the right sources, the right businesses where you would like to get your inspiration from, and you can ask friends, colleagues. Use this chat. I see Patagonia as an example of inspiration. So also look for the unusual suspects, the smaller business or the businesses in other industries in other countries. So select a couple of sources where you think there might be inspiration and research those. Discuss and conclude, as said, determine the X factor, the context drivers, and distinguishing role, and then, if possible, validate, and then use that information to design for your own company. So you can totally do this on your own. This is an exercise, and of course, if you do and over, repeat this over and over, you get better in it and you get quicker in it. But it is something everybody can do, as said, because all information is available. It's not in highly paid knowledge accounts. It's not in closed libraries. It's out there. So you can do it. We've been doing it a lot. And we've been analyzing and modeling a lot of different business models. And this is just a fraction of what we have done. And you will get, per case, you will get a lot of interesting insights. What's even more important is that when you analyze the different models and businesses, you get to see different patterns. And for those of you who are following Business Models Inc., who have much more business BMI inspires, know that you can see the different patterns, business model patterns, as a circular business model or a services business model or stakeholder or digital or platform or exponential. And you see the same patterns in these different businesses. And normally what we say is we would tap into one of these shifts in a BMI Inspires. Actually, we're focusing now on fresh watching. But if you see these patterns, you can even write a book about it. We're doing that. Don't need to do it. Just use it for inspiration. We gather all these inspiration and we created a library of all the business models we've analyzed. So that is a huge database of inspiration, and we use this in our strategy work, but also to inspire clients or others with, okay, where do we want to challenge this business on? Okay, and which are the good examples to challenge or get inspiration from? So, as promised, let's take a look at two of those examples. Scott, would you like to take the floor and go through it?
Yes. Yeah, welcome everybody. As Gijs said, my name is Scott. I'm a researcher here at Business Models Inc. I've been here for 1.5 years, and I think that I researched over 250 companies. So always when I see names such as Lemonade, Patagonia, Coolblue, Tony Chocolonely, I always get a smile on my face because I know all the ins and outs of that business model. So as Gijs said, let's look at the two value creation stories, starting with Local Motors. And when we do this, we always start with doing research into the founder, like who founded this company and why, was there a problem? And in this case, Local Motors was founded in 2007 by Jay Rogers. It's a company that designs, makes and sells vehicles. And it's founded with the belief in open collaboration and co-creation. Local Motors began low volume vehicle manufacturing of open source designs using multiple micro manufacturers. And you see already that there are very like a lot of complex words such as co-creation, open source, micro manufacturing, and believe me, in the upcoming slides I will explain you everything about it. But first, let's have a look at the context, because this company is operating in a changing automotive industry, both from the what's on the road, so you see companies such as Tesla, that kind of things, but also behind the scenes, so in the manufacturers, you see robotics producing these cars, for example. I just mentioned Tesla. Tesla is bringing electric and more sustainable experience to the market, and Tesla is at this moment the most popular car company in the world. I think in 2019 one of their models was even the most sold car in that year. And also, if you look at the stock market, a lot of people really believe in the concept, and their stock price is sky high. But you also see unusual suspects partnering together. For the first time in history, BMW and Daimler combined their forces to start Your Now, which is a partnership to start to become the premium mobility provider. And they are investing 1 billion euros at this moment in rolling this out. So what is it? It's a car sharing app, it's a parking app, and that kind of things. And they're doing that together, so that's very cool. But also new ways of going from A to B. So you see e-scooters such as Bird and Lime, but also other ways such as e-bikes, for example. And Local Motors really has its own approach and is disrupting the automotive industry by reinventing manufacturing and mobility at once. So not just one of these two sides, but the same actually. So first, let's have a look at the manufacturing side of this business. What are they doing different? They are doing three things fundamentally different in manufacturing. First, they use micro manufacturing to produce on a very small scale. So actually, this is the factory of Local Motors. It's very small in comparison with other manufacturing of cars. And they do that really to keep the upfront costs very low, because this is very easy to start. And you see also it's modular. So there are not a lot of machineries who every time need to adapt if you change a little bit, but they can today produce these cars and tomorrow produce something else. And that really enables them to be flexible and produce on a small scale. So not millions of cars a year. They use 3D printing to manufacture components and assemblies. And what's really cool about this is that if you find out that a component is, for example, 1 centimeter off, you need to write a report and you need to send this to your boss, and the boss needs to send it to someone else higher in the company. That person sends it to, let's say, a manufacturer in China that produces it again and then ships it to you. So 6 weeks later, you finally have the component that you need, versus Local Motors, who on the spot can 3D print a new component and keep on working and really reduce the production time with this. And thirdly, they also really rely on co-creation. And co-creation means that they use other ideas, other people's ideas in their designing of their process. In the way that Local Motors does it is they invite makers, engineers, designers to come up with new cool ways to design cars, and it's an incentive. They or can get money, so an income opportunity, but more importantly, they get the recognition of these of local motors, which is really important for those. And they even go so far that they invite these makers to the manufacturer to produce the car with them, which is of course super cool. If you have an ID but you don't have the resources to build it, you can do it via local motors or with local motors in this sense. And by doing these three things differently, they were able to reduce the tuning cost with 50%, while the production time with 90%, which is of course insane. If you look at the mobility side, they produce all kinds of cars. This was the first cars that they brought to market. It's called the Rally Fighter. And they were able to do this in just 18 months after they launched in 2007. And that's super unique because normally it takes 7 years on average for a car company to start and bring a car to the market. Even Tesla, it took Tesla 5 years or something like that. So that was insane. And in 2014, they were even the first company ever to 3D print a car named Strati. And it took 44 hours to do this. And of course, this is not a car that you use on the highway, but more in local communities and that kind of things. And in a few slides, I will show you other examples of how they reinvent mobility. But first, let's dive into what's special about this Strati. It consists only of 50 individual parts, whereas a normal car consists of roughly like insane. And in 2018, they were actually finding itself all over the place. Because I already mentioned they were doing the Rally Fighter, the Strati, new ways of producing and that kind of things. But now they needed to focus in order to come somewhere. So in 2018, they did this and they focused on two things. One, they focused on Ollie, and Ollie is the world's first co-created self-driving, all-electric and cognitive shuttle. And again, this is a lot of complex words. So actually in basic language, what is it? This is a shuttle, an autonomous shuttle, so without a driver, that goes around in local communities. What are local communities? That can be your local area. It can be a campus. It can be Google's headquarters, for example, to pick people up. So via the app, you can order Ollie, the same as you order Uber, only not the driver will come, but this autonomous shuttle will come pick you up. And that was very cool. And a cool story about this vehicle was it is designed by a 22-year-old Italian guy. So you see that locomotives really use the co-creation part to develop this thing. And it's also, as a return, they also brought one of these vehicles to his local areas. So that was super cool. But they also developed a SaaS platform called Launchford, with which they help enterprises to accelerate innovation and product development at the same speed and cost as local motors does. So they go far beyond themselves and try to help with their philosophy, with their way of working, other companies. So let's look at their business model canvas on how they create value. On the right-hand side, you see the local communities, you see the enterprises, and you see the designers, engineers, and makers. If you look at the value proposition for the local community is Ollie. So it's sustainable local transportation in a way that is smart, safe, fast, and on demand. If you look at enterprises, you see that they have the Launchford platform via which they can accelerate innovation. And if you look at the designers, engineers, and makers, they have access to the Launchford SaaS platform, but also they have an income opportunity. If you look at the channels, you see it's the web and the app. So this comes back to Ollie. If I want to order Ollie to pick me up, I can order it via my phone and it comes to me. And for the enterprises and the designers, engineers, and makers, it's the Launchford platform. The customer relationship is co-creation. So this is also done via the community. If you look at how Local Motors earns money, it's first of all via product sales. So they sell these Ollies to local communities, but also they get a fee for the SaaS platform that they sell to enterprises. To come back to SaaS, SaaS means software as a service. I think that's an important thing to mention. So they can make use of the software that Local Motors has. And new designs. New designs is of course not in a way that's valuable in money, but it's really valuable in Local Motors development of their cars. if you look at key resources, you see first of all micro manufacturers, and you see the platform, which is all community via which co-creation is done. The key activities are the platform development and the designing, making, and selling of the vehicles. The key partners are the technology partners, local suppliers for components, and local maintenance providers that help fix these cars, and also Ollie. And I think this is super interesting, the cost structure. As I mentioned, they have small investment for micro manufacturers, so they don't have a lot of upfront costs that are involved normally when you start a big manufacturing. They have no cost in the supply chain because they 3D print everything. And this is not only in financial cost, but also in time, because on the spot they can create new components. And of course, time is money. And they have less research and development costs because they use the crowd. They use the knowledge of the crowd and expertise. So that's the business model of Local Motors. And Jay Rogers, the founder and CEO of Local Motors, said this about their vision. Our vision goes far beyond ground mobility. Our manufacturing process can be applied to virtually any hardware product, from aviation to infrastructure, housing, and other large industrial products. So it's really cool that this comes back to the SaaS platform, that they help other companies also accelerate innovation. And in that way, Local Motors is revolutionizing the industry, for now the mobility industry, but probably sooner than later the other industries as well. Are there maybe any questions or remarks about this case?
Yeah, I think so. If you have questions, please post them in the chat, and we'll be monitoring that. So take your time for it. Scott, I do have a question. I think I've heard some of the answers, but this is fresh watching. What, in your opinion, is now the most worthy insights in this case? Because you give a lot of information, the full business model, but with a fresh watching perspective, what do you say? Hey, this is interesting to mention, and also for the viewers to maybe apply or challenge your own business on.
Yeah, I think what's super interesting about this case is that if you look at the left-hand side of their business model, you see that they produce in a completely different way. Yeah. So first of all, that is via the micro manufacturers, but also it's about involving the crowd, the co-creation, and I think that's super important. In like, what can we learn from that? Yeah. If you take this same concept and you look at other cases, NASA is even using co-creation to design toilets in like the space and that kind of things. Yeah. So that's super interesting.
Yeah, so I think, and we'll take on another case, of course, but this is the whole aspect of looking at the company and see, okay, what's so interesting about this, and check if it can apply for your own company, and if you can see, okay, what if I take that manufacturing part, what would that look like for my own company? Can we reduce change in the value chain, and can we go directly, or as what you said, also the vision of Local Motors, can we go beyond this ground mobility and really play a role? And that's that vision part. They can really play a role in that part. So interesting. I don't see new questions in the chat. Oh, there are two questions. Let me go there. Yeah. How does Local Motors meet safety, compliance, and EU road requirements? Wow. That's so it's a question about the road, the safety and local road requirements. Do you have any input on that, Scott? Or?
No, but like it's the same as every other car manufacturer. Of course, they need to have certain meet certain requirements, and that's the same for Local Motors. So they always test these vehicles. That means also that you need to bump into a wall to see what's the impact on the car and how safe is it. So 100% that Local Motors is doing that. Interesting to tell is that they're even in a further stage. So I just showcase you the example of Ollie, and they are also testing Ollie now in cities in the United States on the public road. Okay. And I've been to Silicon Valley. I've seen autonomous cars driving there in the street testing. So I would say it's a lot further in the US.
Yeah, and I think a good remark about the scalability, or statement that everything is 3D printed. Of course, I think there's a volume challenge there. But I think on the manufacturing side, the 3D printing really enhances that. You need a part of a machine, which you would otherwise be waiting for 6 weeks from, but also the 3D printed car Yes, of course, you will have a volume challenge, but I think they're ahead of the game now, experimenting with that. Also, for the moment that 3D printing might become more mainstream as it is right now.
It's also the future. 3D printing is really going to be the future of manufacturing.
Yeah.
And I think that that's also really interesting to see. Okay, we all know about 3D printing, but we now see a case that it's really used. Already in 2014, they were able to 3D print a whole car.
Yeah, great. All right, keep your questions coming. Let's go to another case. And also during the next case, if you already have questions, please put them in the chat. I will be monitoring the chat.
Yes. So let's go to Bumble. Bumble is a dating app, so it's completely something different than in a car manufacturing. As a professional researcher, I also took the liberty of downloading the app, of course, to make sure that I can provide you guys with the latest insights on how it actually works. On a more serious note, with the introduction of the internet, it became a lot easier to communicate with other people online, of course. And that also resulted in online dating platforms entering the market. Match.com was the first one, and this entered the market in the mid-1990s. It was a platform via which people could meet each other online in a romantic setting. But this business model had a lot of obstacles. If you already look at this website, you see a lot of weird pictures. You don't know if pictures are real. You don't know if the people are real. You don't know the nicknames. They have all nicknames. They don't use their own names. You needed to pay upfront, and you didn't know what you were going to get. So that was all like struggles in the business model and why online dating didn't really take off in the beginning years of the internet. And also people that used online dating were seen as desperate and awkward back in the days versus now that's completely different. One of the persons that changed this was Whitney Wolf. And with Fresh Watching, we always look at, okay, the founder, is there an interesting story to tell? And there definitely is with Whitney Wolf. Because she didn't only found Bumble. And Bumble, actually today an article was posted about Bumble that they reached the milestone of 100 million users. So it's not just a small dating app. But she was also on the founding team of Tinder. And for people that don't know Tinder, Tinder was the world's first dating app. That was introduced in 2007. You could create your own profile and start meeting people online. And the cool thing about this was you needed to simply swipe. So if you saw a profile, a swipe to the left would mean, no, this is not interesting for me. A swipe to the right would mean, yes, I would love to get in touch with this person. And if that other person would swipe you as well to the right, you would get a match and you could start chatting. And the cool thing about this was they actually used gamification to make it fun and addictive. Like one more slide and you could potentially meet the love of your life. So why wouldn't you keep on swiping? And that was super interesting. And you should also, when you have a match, this message would pop up, it's a match. And that really gives you a good feeling, like, yes, I like this person and this person likes me as well. That's a social proof. And that really took away the perspective of online dating as being seen as desperate or awkward. And online dating really took off. So Tinder was a big hit, especially amongst the millennials. A lot of millennials started using this app. However, Whitney Wolf left in 2014 with a sexual harassment lawsuit against the company. So it was not something fun. There was a lot of media publicity because one of the biggest dating app in the world still involved the sexual harassment lawsuit in the management. And then Andre Andreev asked Whitney to become CMO of Badoo immediately. Badoo was at that time the second biggest dating app. And he really wanted her to become the CMO of Badoo. However, she really didn't want to go back into the dating industry because she saw that there were a lot of things wrong, especially the sexual harassment lawsuit. But the system was broken. She really saw that the system was broken and she was dedicated to solve this. And that's why, she still saw that women felt uncomfortable in the dating scene. These women would receive unwanted messages, inappropriate messages of guys, fake profiles, and these women really took it to heart. And with any platform business model, you need to have the supply and demand in control, because if you have too much supply and no demand, of course it's going wrong. An interesting statistic about this, if you look at match.com, 95% of the participants are men and 5% of participants are women. So you see already that there is something wrong. Yeah, she really wanted to solve this. And that's why she created Bumble, a women-centric dating app. And before I tell you what's so special about Bumble, let's dive into the context. So yeah, the context, of course, smartphone and 5G. It's no surprise that in 2007, also 3G was launched. And what this meant was, yeah, like Tinder and 3G, you could download and play with the app, chat with the app, swipe with the app, anytime, anywhere. And that's, of course, also with our smartphone. Our behavior has changed over the years, and yeah, we cannot live without our phones anymore. We use it everywhere, anytime. And that also comes back to social networks. In the past, if you wanted to meet people, you had to go to a club or you had to go to a pub, but you were always limited to the amount of people that were there to meet new people. But now you see social networks such as Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Snapchat, and I can name hundreds more. And Tinder is, of course, one of them. Bumble is also one of them. It's a place where people can meet each other online. And yeah, a lot of millennials are doing that, of course, while they never met each other offline. And of course, the context changes in the dating industry. So it started with platforms via the web, and now dating apps started with Tinder, but you now see a lot more specialized dating app, which Bumble is one of them. And what Whitney really wanted to do was break the stigma of traditional dating. Because what's the traditional stigma? A man needs to approach a woman, and when a man does that, the woman needs to play hard to get, high class, to make it a game. And she thought this was so childish, because if a woman wants something, she can just get it. And that's why she came up with Bumble. So what's Bumble? Bumble is a dating app like Tinder. You create your profile and you can start swiping. Only what's different, on Bumble, women always makes the first move. So if you match with each other, a woman needs to send a text to the guy. A guy cannot send a text to the woman first. And this, yeah, with this you really break the stigma, of course. And because of this, women felt in control. And yeah, Bumble became a place where women felt safe and could meet people safely online and be themselves. And they also have verification tools, making it impossible to have fake profiles. Because a lot of these apps, Tinder, for example, in the beginning years had a lot of fake users. And that's just not a nice place to meet online, because if you match, you don't even know if that's the real person. And maybe you're going to meet and it's a completely different person, or it's a person from a completely different part of the world. And what was so cool about this is that when Bumble launched this, all the other dating apps started using verification tools like this as well. So what is this? On the left, you see, okay, you need to make a profile, copy this gesture, make a photo of yourself, send a selfie, and we will verify your profile together with email verification, that kind of things. As I said, I also downloaded the app, so I also had to do it. This is me trying to get an account, and boom, I was able to start bumbling and meeting people online. So if you have a match, as I said, a woman always needs to approach a guy first to send him a text. But the cool thing about this is you only have 24 hours to start a chat and respond. So a woman sends the guy a chat, and it needs to be in 24 hours. And what they solve with this is, for example, you have a match on Tinder. With the problem with this is people don't chat. People only use Tinder to maybe swipe. See, this is fun, let's swipe, especially with friends. Let's check if there are nice guys. But they don't even use it the day after or whatsoever. And Bumble really forces you to chat, because if you don't send a message within 24 hours, the match expires forever. You can never reach the person anymore. And also from the other side, a guy needs to respond in 24 hours. And what you solve with this is that if a woman sends a text and the guy is not responding, let's say on Tinder, and it's 3 days, it's 7 days, the woman can ask herself like, hey, is it me that is doing something wrong, and that kind of things. Whereas now, after 24 hours, the guy didn't respond. She's like, okay, never mind. Like, he can never reach me again. And they also really have a zero tolerance on sexism and bad behavior. So if you send an inappropriate message, your account will be blocked. And what's cool to tell here is that they're even using AI. So if a guy sends, for example, an inappropriate photo, to a woman. Even before she opens the message, even before she sees the message, the AI can see, okay, this picture is really inappropriate. Let's not continue with this. And yeah, Bumble didn't stop connecting people only in the area of love. In 2016, Bumble BFF was launched, a way to create meaningful relations, friendships. So instead of the romantic setting, you could meet people and make friends. And also in 2017, Bumble Biz was launched, a new mode for professional networking. So you could meet professionals in the area, network and that kind of things. So let's look at their business model canvas. On one end, you have the singles looking for love, you have people looking for friendships, and you have professional looking to network. And the value propositions for all of them is you can find meaningful connection in every part of your life. If that's a romantic setting, if that's a friends or a professional setting. It's a safe online community. I emphasized this already many times. People can really meet people online safely. And for the singles looking for love, the value proposition is women need to make the first move. Both for the men and for the women, this is a value proposition because women are in control, and it's also nice for a guy to not text first. If you look at the channel, you see it's online, so they have of course an app, but they also have offline events, and they have word of mouth. Of course, if I go on a date with someone that I met on Bumble, I'm going to tell my friends, hey, and they ask me, hey, how did you meet this person? And I'm like, I met her on Bumble. And my friends will start using it probably as well. Customer relationship is location based. So this also comes back to the safety aspect. Not that someone can match with me that's on the other part of the world. If I say I only want to meet people that are in the radius of 20 kilometers, I will only meet those persons. And yeah, this comes back on, it's built on trust. People really trust the platform. If you look at the revenue streams, you see it's one end the freemium version, but you also have a premium version. And via the premium version, you can have features like unlimited swipes or super likes to get more exposure. Key resources, you have the app and the user data, of course. And you have the brand reputation. And I can't emphasize enough how important that was for Bumble. Bumble it started in 2014, and they're now the second largest player. That's like super cool. And that comes back to their value proposition and creating a safe place. And it comes also back to the key activities, guarantee safety, but also app development and platform maintenance. The key partners, they have ambassadors, influencers, that kind of things, and they have technology providers. And the cost structure, you have platform maintenance, you have marketing and sales, and you have staff. The vision of Bumble is, Bumble envisions a world free of misogyny. What is misogyny? Misogyny is prejudice against women. Really a world where all relationships are equal. And that's done by empowering connection in love, life, and work. And that was the case about Bumble.
All right, thanks, Scott. I think also here, again, and feel free to ask any questions if you have those, of course. But here as well, a lot of information. What do you feel is remarkable, are key insights or aha moments that you feel like, hey, this is interesting for other businesses to apply to as well, or to apply to the businesses of viewers?
Yeah, I think something that's super interesting is that they have different messages against the customer segment. So in this case, let's look at the men and the women. Their first marketing activities where they would go to campuses, they would first go to the women and tell them, hey, do you want to find out which guys like you on campus? And they would go like, oh yeah, that's cool, let's download the app. Then they would go to the guys and say, hey, all the women are on that app, go to there. And just that simple trick enabled them to create a platform that was equal instead of Match.com with 95% men and 5% women. And they transformed that message. They really looked, okay, what do women want? Women want safety, women want control. And by doing that, they were able to grow to 100 million users.
Yeah, so to really dive into the specific pains and needs of that specific target group, they will be able to create something really huge and of big value. A good question also, which was around locomotives, but also applies here, is that there was a question, okay, what can an insurance company learn from something like locomotives? And I think that's an interesting question because the two don't compare. It's a totally different business. And I think looking at that question, what can an insurance company learn? I think on the locomotives part, it's really like that distinguishing vision. The locomotives plays a bigger role than only in ground mobility. So no, you cannot steal the vision, but at least be challenged as an insurer. Like, okay, you sell insurances as an insurance company, but can we play a bigger role? And can we promise something bigger or help people with their biggest job to be done? So that's I think that's the looking at the locomotives where you get from insurance. So it's really like, okay, what's an interesting aspect, and how can I translate that to challenge my own business? We have other questions here. How is this business model different from, for example, Tinder?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. In essence, it's not really different. Only like what's so special about Bumble and what makes them like so big, grow so fast, is that they really focus on creating a safe place for these women. And Tinder, that's not Tinder's main focus at this moment. So if I quickly can look at this, you see, it's really a safe online community. That's the first aspect, but it also comes back to Bumble is now used for Bumble BFF and Bumble Biz. So they copy paste the same concept, but then put it in different contexts. So you could match people for friends, you could match people for network, and maybe in the future we can even match people for an Uber or whatsoever, you know?
Yeah. I like another interesting question, and it's not specifically about these two cases, but I really like it. It's a question, okay, can you talk about how you have used freshwatching to innovate around your own business model at BMI? And I think there are two answers, because there's something in our DNA that we always challenge ourselves, how can we create more value? And actually the whole, the book is actually an outcome of the freshwatching we did for strategy work, but also for ourselves. So I think it's in our DNA to challenge ourselves, okay, how can we do better? I think a very specific example is the whole COVID-19 situation, because we were and are in a business where we do a lot of strategic conversations. And we are in this huge creative village, 700 square meters, and it's really built around co-creation and collaboration and physical interaction. And we were always convinced that this was essential for strategy to happen. And actually, of course, we in the past years, we already made the transition towards more digital, but COVID-19 forced us to do strategy fully digital. So what we did is freshwatching on the web on, okay, what companies are really good at online collaboration? What platforms do we see? Not only to use, but what's the interaction? So that's what we really used to, okay, how can we bring a strategic conversation to the next level? The challenge there was, of course, that not a lot of companies did that already, but so that's how we used it. And what we also do is when we have our strategic annual meetings, we always challenge ourselves to bring in new perspectives, sometimes by freshwatching cases, sometimes with new visions of others. So, and also sometimes with talking to customers. So that's how we challenge ourselves.
Yeah, and maybe also in addition to that, like we position ourselves as rebels, as innovators. So the conversations that we have at lunch are most of the time about lemonade, you know, like, hey, did you guys see lemonade? And then like, oh no, what's lemonade? Yeah, they use AI, blah, blah, this and that. They did an IPO. Those are the conversations that we always have. Yeah. So yeah, that's how we also challenge ourselves and come up with new ideas. And yeah, because we are with almost 20 here, we have 20 freshwatching perspective.
Yeah, all right. Let's wrap up. Thanks for your questions and your interaction. But actually, okay, what can I do to make this work? What's my own next step? Well, it drills down actually to what we previously said, because as a business, you should continuously rethink what you're doing. Are we still creating that value? And is it the value remaining, or is it decreasing? And where can we create new value? How can we be more relevant? So rethink, and you should look outside, talk to your customers, do freshwatching. Why? Because you need that information to redesign. Okay, how does that value look like? What can we do? And after you have done that, you need to restart. You need to unlearn and do things differently and do different things. So fresh watching is one of the aspects you can use for that. So first, of course, select and research. Look through this chat, look which companies are mentioned, but also buy books with interesting examples. Look online, scroll around companies where you find information, and select a couple to dive into to research. And then discuss and conclude. Don't do it only on yourself, a one-man job, but also discuss together. As Scott says, we do this during lunch, and you get a lot of new insights. Draw your conclusions, and if possible, validate that. Validate together with people who have a deeper understanding of that company, and even work in that company. And then, of course, last, use it for design. Apply it to your business. And of course, the link might not always be as explicit but it can be insurance and local motors. Let's see what inspires you, what makes you tick in that fresh watching example, and see, okay, how could this apply for my business? So, having said that, you got this. You can do this, and the information is available. It's quite simple, but it's very powerful. So, for now, I would like to thank you. If you like this BMI Inspires, please sign up for the next BMI Inspires. It will be on August 20th. And for now, I wish you a very pleasant evening for those in this time zone, or morning or afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks for watching.